What's been the hardest part about this process? What's the hardest part been getting into applying to dental school?
Man, I'd say the hardest part in the dental application process was the personal statement, more conveying your story into what you wanted to be narrated to, and pretty much selling yourself to admission board in the right way. That way, it's convincing that, or you convince them that you are a perfect fit for their school. For me, it was definitely the hardest part of the process.
Becoming a dentist. This is one story, 4 years in the making. And now we've got the infamous word accepted, accepted into dental school. Stay tuned. We talked to a D1 who's going to tell you all about his journey and how he did it. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Dr. Darwin, the new dentist coach, for another episode of Ask Dr. Darwin on the New Dentist Podcast Show, where we talk about getting into dental school, surviving dental school, and then life as a new dentist. Guys, be sure that you are subscribed. Be sure that you are sharing. Be sure that you're commenting. And then also feel free to support this channel by joining. Hit the button down below. And there's many different ways to support. This channel's been up and running for probably about 6-7 years now, and definitely have been impacting a lot of people both here in the States and also internationally. So again, this content is for you to help you through your journeys through our beloved profession called dentistry, oral health. So feel free to join and support the channel so that we can continue these videos and this information for years to come. So different ways to support the channel down below. Also, this episode of Ask Dr. Darwin is being brought to you by Dr. Darwin On Demand. That's right. Check out the link right here. Dr. Darwin On Demand, the ultimate membership community that's supporting you, right? Supporting you through tips, strategies, accountability, and a membership community where you can learn from others, but also strengthen your application and your process in becoming a dentist. So again, go down to this link below for more details, and we hope to see you in the membership community. All right. So today's special guest, he's been so busy that I didn't even know he got into dental school. I'm on Instagram, looking at Instagram, and I see dental school and UCSF. I'm like, what? Wait a minute, when did this happen? So today we're going to be talking about dental school. We're joined with first year D1 student Dr. Leopold Samba. We're going to be talking about the Samba success method today and how he got into dental school. Talk a little bit about his application process, how he got prepared for the DAT, the schools, the interviews. He's going to share also some more information about the hardest part, and then the tips as well. So guys, stay all the way through, right? From beginning to end. Don't skip around, because you never know when Samba's success story is going to hit you with a little gem, a little tip that you're going to want to know. All right. So Dr. Samba, what's up?
What's going on, Dr. Don Hayes?
Hey.
Doing good, man. Doing good. It's been, since what you called this past fall when you came to, had a little meeting with us at Michigan up there at for USNDA. So I want to yet again say thank you for that. And also, he's right, guys. I am one of the success stories from watching this man's YouTube videos, from pre-dents to dental students talking about their way of getting into school, has helped me. So definitely check out his videos and always check it throughout the end, because there are gems throughout the video where you find something you're like, oh, that it hits you a little bit different. It clicked for you. So definitely want to say thank you again, Dr. Darwin Hayes, for what you're doing for the community.
You're welcome, man, and I appreciate it. And it's just part of the process, man. My way of giving back, but also to uplift and educate, elevate people. And believe me, you'll have your chance too.
Yes, sir.
You'll have your chance to do it, and we're counting on it, because people that are listening today are here because of the channel, but also because they want to also know more about your journey and how you did it. So let's do this. Let's first kind of introduce yourself for those that are meeting you for the first time. Tell us about yourself, where you're from, and we'll share a little bit more about dental schools and where you're actually at a little bit later, and how you came down to your final decision. But let's first do with a nice little introduction of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Leopold Samba, or Leo Samba is fine. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia suburb called Peachtree City, Georgia. Where we're known for driving golf carts around. But originally, my family's from the Ivory Coast, or the La Côte d'Ivoire. It's a Western African country. I've spent some time in my life there as well. I've done 3 years from 7 to 10 years old. I spent some time there, and I've been going back every other summer. When the opportunity presents itself. So there's definitely that aspect of me as well. And then I also did my undergrad at the University of Michigan, where I just recently graduated this past May. So, excited for that. I was really, really pumped for that as well. So that's a little bit about myself.
Awesome, awesome. So why dentistry? Why did you pick dentistry? Because uh, if I recall, you were a science major, but I'm sure something influenced you at the beginning stages, probably before college or right after or during that process that pushed you towards dentistry. So what's your story? Why dentistry for you?
So yeah. Like every other career, there's always it's never a straight road. It's always, it's almost like a magical mystery tour or a bus tour where, it kind of goes all array. But for me, I in high school, I was always, like very science based, very heavy into the sciences. So, I was exploring health, careers in the science field. And then eventually I had orthodontic care done to me. I had a word Invisalign when I was in high school. And the orthodontist who was providing care for me was like a really cool guy. And, I actually thought of him as almost as a mentor, someone I could look up to, because the way he would not only, render service to, me and other people who like from, like marginalized communities, but also, like was relatable and, also was a person as well. He had an outside life as well. He was very influential in our community. So I thought of him as someone like, I would want to be like him. So going into college, I had intentions of going into, becoming an orthodontist. But as as most college students, I was like, okay, let me at least check out every other major there is or career fields there are. So my first year, I spent some time exploring different options. Checking out business, checking out PA, all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, every field I checked out, I always found myself circling back to dentistry because it encompassed everything I wanted in a career. So from serving, being able to render healthcare, that is one thing that I really was drawn towards. And that was stemmed from, my background and coming from a community where, my mom was always someone that was always willing to put her foot, outside the door to help somebody else, and that had a huge influence on me. And then I also love the fact that in dentistry, it was very hands-on. I grew up when I was growing up, I was always, outside playing in the dirt, whether or, playing, fishing, farming. And, in college, I also got the opportunity to work in a research lab that was very surgical based, which allowed me to work in the operating room. And that was one thing I wanted to make sure in my career I wanted to be very engaged with my hands. And another aspect for me was the fact that I could, change someone's appearance and them be happy, or like render a service to them so that they, walk out my office or work out, the clinic office with a brighter smile, or like more confident smile.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Well, shout out to that orthodontist from back in the day, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that kind of influence. What's the doctor's name?
His name is Dr. Johnson. He's out there in Fayetteville, Georgia.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Shout
Yeah.
out to Dr. Johnson. Thank you very much for
Mm.
your contribution and being influential and the next generation of oral health practitioners. So shout out to Dr. Johnson. That's great. So let's also shout out and talk about uh the part of the process that can shoot you
Yeah.
and shoot you in the foot, shoot you in the head, and and just drive you crazy, which is the application. So tell us a little bit about how you prepared and how you got, like, when you started to put your application together, especially since it sounds like you knew after the first year of college, yep, dentistry is going to be what I'm going to do. So talk about when did you start the application process and some of the things that you did to make sure that you were ready by your senior year.
Right. So after, like you said, after my freshman year, I was dead set on dentistry. So with that said, I picked a science major that literally knocked out each prerequisite every dental school needed. So that way, as I'm taking classes I am for my major, I'm also taking classes for my prereqs as well for dental school.
Hey, this is Dr. Darwin. Are you looking for some mentorship, some accountability, some help with getting all of this application and getting into dental school and getting into residency and then just your life as a new dentist? Look, I'm having monthly, twice a month, live coaching sessions and office hours so we can talk about all of that. I don't want you to struggle with the application process. I don't want you to struggle with getting ready for interviews. I don't want you to struggle about what list of schools and programs to apply to. We talk about all of that in our group, our monthly group called Dr. Darwin On Demand. Dr. Darwin On Demand. Check it out down below here. And then also, if you're interested and you want to get that help so you don't have to struggle anymore, so that you can get some mentorship, some accountability, and some help, hit this link right here. Hit that link right there so we can get you signed up and enrolled today. Today. Your future starts today. And I'm here to help you. This is Dr. Darwin. And join my members-only community called Dr. Darwin On Demand. Look forward to seeing you soon, okay? Now back to this episode. Enjoy.
And as I was knocking those out, I decided to take the DAT my junior year, right after I finished biochem. And what I used to prep for that was the DAT Destroyer and Chad's videos, and also DAT Bootcamp. I feel like those three materials were essential for me preparing for the DAT. And like everyone says, it's a big test. It's a very challenging test, difficult test. But as long as you set some time aside, either be in the summer or in the winter, whenever you have free time, take that time off and just dedicate your time to that. Now you don't have to put yourself in a hole and not see the sunlight anymore, but have a balance, where you study for 5 days a week and take 2 days off, or you just find your system, find your rhythm, because at the end of the day, you're really not learning anything if you're constantly looking at something. It's better to step away from it, come back to it, and like that way, eventually it'll become ingrained into your brain. Another material I used as well was some flashcards, like Quizlets that were available on the internet, but I didn't find that was helpful, like supplemental, but I felt that the Destroyer, Chad's videos were really good for explaining, like concepts, especially for biology and chemistry and general chemistry, and DAT Bootcamp for test prep, as in practice exams and the PAT. So
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad you kind of transitioned to the DAT, because again, that is part of the application, right? Most schools most schools will tell you, yeah, you can send your application, but what they not telling you, if you don't have your DAT score, they ain't looking at your
Yeah,
application.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
They're not looking at it. So you want to be able to have your DAT scores as part of your application when you send it together all as one, which means that you've got to prep. So I'm glad you shared some information about the ways you prepped with Chad videos, DAT, Bootcamp, and Destroyer.
Mm.
I know a lot of people have not concerns, but they always want to know, well, how long should I study for? How much prep time should I set aside for the DAT? Share with us what was your strategy, and if you can calculate the amount of, not necessarily hours, but months that you think that you kind of use, that you dedicated time before you actually took your DAT for the first time?
Yeah, so I knew that I for these type of tests, it was very reminiscing or similar to like the ACT and SAT in high school, where I'm the type of individual that I will need at least 2 months. I had 2 months to really feel confident about a test, but at the end, I took 3 months. So I started studying mid May, finished in June, and took my July, and took my exam in August. So, and with that said, I had the original scheduled date was for July, but as the a test date kept approaching, I didn't feel as confident as I wanted to, so I pushed back the date. And I think that's one thing, dental students or pre-dental students should know, that it's okay to put like reschedule the exam. Like, don't feel the pressure of taking it on a set date that you made for yourself, because at the end of the day, one, it's not a cheap test. So, you want, once you take it once, you want to be done with it. And two, there's no point of taking an exam if you don't feel confident in your ability to take it. So I would definitely, that's one advice I would say is, take your time with it. And everyone's different. So some people might be able to learn the material quicker than, per se someone else. So it's really up to how you learn things and how disciplined you are in studying. For me, I'm a very, relaxed studier, where I will study, 5 days a week, and then I need 2 days off to do whatever I need to do, personal wise, and then come back to it. So it's really on how you study yourself and how you go about taking tests.
Yeah, that's key so that you guys have a better idea as to that prep time because it's going to be different for people based on their major, based on the classes that they're currently taking, and those that they're just finishing up. I heard you say you took it, you strategically took it at during your junior year
Mm-hmm.
after you finished biochem,
Right, right,
right?
yeah. So yeah.
It really just depends on your course load that you take,
Mhm,
especially that if that course load is part of the science portion of the DAT. So great strategy
mhm.
with regards to that. And I'm sure you'll have some additional questions the people that are listening and watching that they may have as far as, all right, well, give me your study schedule. How many
Right,
hours? What's this? So we'll save
right.
that. You can contact student
Yeah.
Dr. Leopold. You can talk to him offline on that. He'll definitely give you a breakdown with
Right.
that as well. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Were you how did you feel about the scores that you got? Because many different schools have many different prerequisites related to the score as far as where they, where the range of the
Right,
current class has come in and what other classes have done in the past. When you
right.
got your scores back, how did you feel?
So yeah, I got my scores back. So I got a 19, which for me, as if anyone, like for me taking 19, I was like, okay, that's a good score. I can still apply it that cycle,
Yep.
shoot my shot. But I also felt that my GPA, which at the time was a 3.6, and 3.6 science, 3.7, overall. So I felt very confident overall in my application that I would be a competitive, applicant. And I think that's one thing, you should consider when after, students receive their DHC scores back is, your score, okay, yes, it might not be in the 26s, the 25s, all that, but at dental admission committee board will, look at you overall as an applicant and see,
That's right.
like, exactly, like how you are as a whole applicant. Because yes, maybe you didn't do too well per se on, on a half a day exam, right? Like that, it happens. But they also look at like how were you in the community? How influential were you and engaged you were in the community you were?
Yep.
How were you in the classrooms? Oh, okay, so you did well throughout all these prereqs, so it shows that you can keep up with the academic workload per se. That would be very similar to yours in dental school. How your little recs speaking about you, how you carry yourself as a person. So I think in terms of DAT scores, as long that everyone's like, everyone says, 18, over 18 is fine, which I agree with. I believe if you are in the 18, 20, 18 or above range, shoot your shot and see how it goes from there.
Absolutely. And those that are applying this cycle, keep in mind that you have a metric available to you about the schools that you're looking at and applying to or considering, because every school on their website will give you that number,
Hmm.
right? They will give you those, well, I should say those DAT numbers, right? They'll
Right.
give you the overall average of what everyone has done that has been admitted, that's matriculated
Mm.
for the current year and maybe a year or two before, and they also share the science average as well, right?
Right. You
So
do.
right, so you know, or you should know as you're creating your spreadsheets and
Hmm.
information about your schools as to what schools you're considering, you'll know what those schools are looking for as a minimum or as a standard number for your DAT. So it shouldn't be a surprise. Don't make it a surprise. It will be the first and the last time you have to worry about a standardized test related to getting into dental school, because guess what? In 4 years, guess what they're gonna call you?
A
Guess what
doctor.
patient's gonna call you doctor.
Yeah.
They're not Patients are not gonna ask you, oh yeah, by the way, Dr. Leopold, how'd you do on the DAT? What was your DAT score?
Exactly.
Nah, they're not gonna not gonna ask you that. And the other thing I wanted to say about DAT before we move on is it's just one piece of the application.
Yeah.
Like you
Exactly.
mentioned, it's, most schools, if not all schools, are into what we call holistic admissions. That means they're looking at you as a candidate holistically as a overall, not just your DAT score, not just your GPA, but
Hmm.
also community service, your personal statement, experiences, shadowing, all those different things, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, yes, you have to be science centered. You also have to be creative, but you also have to be a problem solver. You
Mm.
have to be a communicator, because our profession is what? It's about people.
People. Yep. Yep.
And our service to people just happens to be that we are going to be their oral health consultant,
Right.
right? But we still got to communicate with them. We still got to help them with solutions. We have to also make them accountable, but show them how we're going to help them and not hurt them and provide assistance. So it's really about people too.
Hmm.
So that's important. Do you have those people skills? You could have a 4.0 GPA and get a 26 on the DAT, but if you're not personable,
Right.
you can't hold a conversation.
Then yeah, and it gets read in the interview. That's another portion of the application process we'll talk about later. In the session, but
Yeah.
if you're not
Oh,
able to communicate
community.
that will be picked up in an interview. So you're definitely right on that part.
And patients are going to pick it up too.
Right.
They be looking at, oh, doctor, he's real rigid. He didn't even
Right.
respond. He didn't acknowledge what I said. I mean, all those things again are part of this holistic admissions, but also saying that it's more than just grades,
Mhm.
but it is part of the process,
Process.
and you want to do well. So that's good. That's good.
Mhm.
So took your DAT, and like we mentioned, I know you did your homework and made a spreadsheet, because I
Yeah.
remember talking to you about it. And
Yeah.
that spreadsheet had a list of schools. So tell us a little bit about how you went about selecting schools and then adding them to your list, and why you added certain schools, especially since you're from the East Coast and you ended up on the West Coast. So let's
Yeah.
share a little bit about that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. So, in terms of my list of schools, the three main factors for me were cost, were the focus slash curriculum of the school, and the location. So, going back to the first point, cost obviously is a big factor. A lot of dental students should not overlook. That's one big advice I would give is you can go into dentistry, but go in with a game plan, because tackling on that amount of school debt is something you just cannot like set aside. Something you should have in mind how you're going to tackle it. So make sure you know what you're getting yourself into and know what the school has to provide. Which goes to my second point of the curriculum size focus. So for me, I knew that going into dental school, I wanted the option of specializing to be open. So, with that said, I look for schools that had, they're big into research, or, they had, a good chunk of their class was, specializing. So like if more than 25% of their class was specializing, that caught my eye, because that means their curriculum is set around towards, or it's having success in their dental students, getting into residencies. So that was a big focal point for me. And the last one is location. You got to understand, you're going to be wherever you are for those 4 years. So if you're in the Midwest, just know it's going to be a little bit cold. If you're, that's a factor you got to consider. If you're going to be out West Coast, you got to account for that. So those for me were the three big things that really were the determining factors in where I applied to school. And I ended up applying to 7 schools. I ended up applying to UCSF, to University of Detroit Mercy, to Maryland, which, Dr. Darwin, hey, see,
Hey, represent.
Yeah, Maryland, DCG, Dental College of Georgia, which is down there in Augusta, Georgia for me, Meharry, Colorado, and USC. So those are the 7 schools I applied to.
Okay, well, definitely, you hitting all the hot spots: West Coast, Midwest, and where else? Oh, and the dirty South, the dirty South, the dirty South. You got them all kind of covered. Well, after you select your school, submit your application, then you got to get ready for the interviews. But sometimes it's a wait. So you submit it, and then you just going like this, and you wait, and you wait, and then you wait, and then you wait. It's like, come on, y'all, let's go. So tell us a little bit about, once you got your interviews, how many interviews you got, and what the interview day was like, and if there were any like questions or things that were strange that you did not expect at all that happened as well.
So so for me, due to a letter of recommendation error, I got my application late, which I believe had an effect on my admission process, not hearing back before on that December 2nd day, which is okay. It's okay. It happens. But January, the turn of the year came by, and that's when all my interviews started coming in. So I got 4 interviews. I got interviews from UCSF, from Meharry, from Maryland, and from UDM. I didn't hear back from the other 3 schools, so that's unfortunate. However, the way it was for us, since we're still in that COVID year, or we're coming out of the COVID year, it was still all on Zoom. So I didn't really get to see the school in person. It was more meeting faculty, staff, and students. In terms of how the interviews were conducted, it was very, some schools did it a little differently. Like UDM had, one portion that was like a video. It was like a kiosk almost. It was like you're talking to, like answering prompts. And then they also had like not in person, but like Zoom session where you were talking to faculty and staff. That was which is a standard one of the mill, you're interviewing somebody, it's a regular interview. And the other schools was the same thing. It was, open-ended interview, except UCSF, that was a closed file interview where it's more of what you say is what they know of you as an applicant, which is a little bit different from the other schools.
Yeah, and that's true. I know different schools do it differently, and you're not gonna know.
Mm-hmm.
You may not know until afterwards, or right during. They may say, "Hey, we don't have your file. We just know that you're a candidate for selection," and then you have to pretty much have to do a very thorough and succinct overview as to who you are, because they can't go back to the file and look and see, they can't see your personal statement. They can't see your GPA or your class rank or pass fail or whatever type of curriculum grading system that you have at your school. So something to keep in mind when you're preparing for your interviews: open file, closed file, there's a big difference, and you won't know maybe until the day up, right? So you have to make sure that you prepare that information make sure that the information that you're going to be sharing them is conclusive of your application. If for chance they don't have your file or your application in front of you, and I know that for certain because I've been involved in some dental school interviews, and I didn't have the file, and I'm like,
right. Yeah.
can a brother get a file, please?
Yeah.
Like, so I can really target some questions.
Right.
But that's fine. But again, your job as a candidate is to provide that overview, even if they had the file, because the interview committee is going to be looking at a lot of applications,
Right. A lot.
right? Less than, I mean, it's about 53%. I think this latest statistics from ADIA indicate that on average about 11, a little bit over 11,000 people applied to dental school, and 53% of those actually matriculate.
Wow.
So there's a lot of applications that schools and admissions committees are looking at, and then we're not going to be able to remember everything.
Right.
So part of your duty and responsibility as a candidate is to be able to tell us everything that we need to know and give us every reason why we should select you and offer you, give you an acceptance to get this, to get your
Yes.
DDS and be a DMD DDS candidate as well. So keep that in mind as you guys are preparing for your interviews, because you just don't know the type of format, nor do you know if it's going to be open file or closed file or no file or etc. So that makes sense. Any questions
So
during the interview day that were like, oh my God, I did not think they were going to ask me this one?
not per se that I remember. I most of the time, it's very standard one in the mill of, why dentistry, tell me about yourself, all that good stuff. I guess the one that really tripped me up was when, my first interview was, they were like, so do you have any questions for us? And, for me, I was like, okay. I had a list of questions that I had, but they just answered them so quickly because, those questions probably received a lot. So that was one that stumped me. I was like, okay, I should come my next interview, I should come more prepared with better questions for the school themselves or the faculty themselves,
You must have questions.
Yeah.
Let me repeat. Pre-dental students, you must have questions. Let me repeat. Pre-dental students, you must have questions. Not having questions is maybe the equivalent of you saying, well, I know everything. I don't have nothing. I don't have no questions to ask.
Yep. Yep.
Yo. Plus, you guys got to remember that you have a job too as a candidate. As a candidate, as a pre-dental candidate seeking admission, you have 4, 5, 6, 7 schools that you've got to you have interviews for.
Right.
At some point, when you start getting acceptances, you have to pick what school. You can't pick 2. You can't pick 3. You can't pick 4. You can only pick 1.
Yep.
So the questions that you have that you should have for your interview are going to help you make that decision, right? Or it'll be one of the things that'll help you decide. Of course, cost, like you said, right? Cost is definitely going to be a factor for many of you, for everyone. But also there could be some clarification, some things that you want to find out that maybe it's not on the website, that you haven't heard from other students that are currently there, that the school didn't share with you during the presentation or the overview about the program, right? So that means you got to have questions. So people, please do not come to your interviews unprepared with your list of questions. And if you guys want to know what some questions are to ask, reach out to us. Reach out to us. Dr. Leopold is going to have his will have his
I have a whole
email
doc for
address.
that. I got a whole
Yeah.
doc. And
I've got a list of questions too that you can ask, and you can send, if you do have if you have questions about what questions to ask, shoot me an email at newdentistcoach@gmail.com, newdentistcoach@gmail.com, and put in the subject dental school interview questions, and we'll get those over to you. And like I said, student Dr. Leopold's got a whole list. We're gonna shoot that over to you. But if you don't ask us for the questions so that you can ask the questions in your interview, you're not gonna get it. But so I think you understand what your assignment is. All right.
Yeah.
Hope you understand the assignment with regards to questions for your interview. Very, very important. So also important is trying to figure out, like I said, how am I going to pick between these four schools? You know, um, and for everybody, it's going to be different. So share with us your process. What did you do? How did you decide on which of these four schools that you were going to um, uh, going to attend based on not only the interview, but of course your acceptance? You know, if you
Right.
got one acceptance, then it's real easy. But if you got two or three or
Right.
four,
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, how are we gonna do this? So
Do
tell
this.
us a little bit, share with us a little bit about your process on how you decided what school to attend.
Yeah. So when you interview or during that interview process, they will talk about financial aid and how you can start applying for financial aid, which I cannot state highly enough to do it as early as possible. That way, when you get your letters of acceptance, you can start comparing the costs, which for me, that was, I guess, one of the main factors in my decision. So I got into Meharry, UCSF, UDM, and Maryland. And
Oh, you got
yeah,
into all four. See,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
even he didn't even tell me that before too. That's
Yeah.
something. Ain't that something? These Michigan students and these Chelsea football fans, I tell you.
Yeah. So,
Congratulations. That's great. That's
thank you.
great. So
Thank you.
you were you were you were 4 out of 7 out of the interviews and 4 out of 4 after the interviews.
After the interviews. Yep.
That's
Yep.
great, man. That's
Yeah.
great,
So,
man.
so
So
some
so
people,
so the factor for you was what? Besides cost, what else?
so, so for after that, I looked at the curriculum. So, what I was looking at, like I said, I always I wanted a door of specialization to be open for me. So, throughout those options, I looked at those schools and it eventually came down to Meharry, Maryland, and UCSF. And
Okay.
for me, the price difference, wasn't that bad. They all had pretty good numbers in terms of specializing, but UCSF stood out not only because of their specialization rate, but their research. It's world renowned for their research, and also hidden gem was their pass fail. The pass fail was really really nice. I liked how the fact that they eliminate the not saying dental stores are not competitive, but it creates a more collaborative environment where they want you to know the material more than just to memorize and just like write on a piece of paper and forget it. They're teaching you more. It's like you learn this so that way you can apply it to when you're out there in the real world, which I feel UCSF that has done a really good job at. So
So if you all been paying attention, you just heard where he took his talents to. Can you remind everybody where you took your talents to? Drum roll, please.
yeah, so I'm a dental student D1 at the University of California, San Francisco, UCSF. Yeah.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So that's
Yeah.
great, man. Man, I know there's been a long time in the process, and the fact that you uh, had a list of schools to choose from is great.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
and that's why asking questions and taking notes and making sure that you have all the information to do your job, which is once you get these acceptances, then you got to figure out, okay, this is where I'm going. But that's your job because the
Right.
schools don't know. You know, multiple schools will send you acceptances, but you can only go to one dental school at a time. So you got to pick. That's
Yeah.
on you.
Yeah.
Final
Unless
decision.
you wanna pay two tuitions at one
Nah. You don't want to do that. You're gonna do that maybe later on in your training or something else. But
Right.
congratulations again. That's great news, man.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
great
you.
news. What would you say is what was the hardest part about this process for you? What was
Ooh.
the hardest part? And in addition to it being the whatever was the hardest part, share with us how you managed to get through
that,
those
that
those
the hardest
challenges?
part. Yeah. So the hardest part for me was the personal statement section of the application, dental school application,
Mm.
where I wanted to craft a story that so that way it fits 23 years of me in one picture. You know, selling myself to the point where like it would be a no-brainer for me not to be a part of the dental student class they're enrolling for that year.
Right.
And what was challenging for me, it was I had to do that while also studying for the DAT. So it was finding that balance and also, like having, doing multiple drafts of it to make sure that it was what I wanted, it was telling the story I wanted to be told. So that was for sure the hardest part of my dental school application process. And a tip for, pre-dents is to start on that as early as you can. I believe I think I was one of the same kids where like how parents always tell their little kids like not to do something and they don't listen until it happens. Like, oh, I see why you said that. That was with me in a personal statement. I believe if you can get a head start on that, it will save you so much of a headache and time as well. So
Yeah, and believe me, and listen to what he just shared, and listen to others that have shared the same their journeys. You have time and you have content,
mhm,
or
right,
or I should say, you should have content
right,
because D1 year. I'm sorry, not D1 year, but you're whenever you've decided that dentistry is going to be your profession, from that time to a year, 2, 3, 4 years after that, you will be accumulating experiences that you can share, that you must share in your personal statement. If you're just starting this journey, or you're, new to the journey, get one of these. Quick tip: get one of these notebooks and have it titled "Dental School Journey." My journey to dental school, and you want to journal everything that you're doing and actions towards your process of becoming a dentist, because that is content that you'll have as part that you can utilize for your personal statement. That's a quick tip. And like you said, that will allow you to start early so
hmm
that you have content so that you can write early. But you can't write anything early if you don't have content, or you haven't been building and developing content for your personal statement. So, if you know pretty early on, freshman, sophomore year of college, that it's dentistry, then start purposely and intentionally having a journal that you can keep, that you can start, sharing some of the things that you're doing, and some of the observations, some of the assessments that of situations that you're putting yourself in, whether it's shadowing, attending meetings, meeting people, discussions. Write that in your journal, because all of that is part of your personal statement.
right.
Can't stress that enough. And so that you're not stressed out 3 months before you want to have the application due, and you don't have you trying to write your personal statement.
That was spoken from the gospel, spoken from the gospel because
Yeah, man, do that
that
early.
yeah, get that once you get that out the way, it just makes things so smooth,
Yeah,
because like you were saying, like if you're just now trying to recollect everything you've done on your dental school journey 3 months or like 4 months, maybe even 1 month before it's due, it's gonna be
too
difficult,
late.
it's gonna be
Yeah, it's
challenging.
too late. It's gonna be
Yeah.
too late. Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely. So now, tips, advice, knowing what you know now and the process that you've just completed and went through.
Yeah.
What are 2 or 3 tips and strategies that you want to share with pre-dentals that are going through this process right now? What are some things that you would say that they must do or should do to help them through this process?
Yeah. Of course, there's always, get the prereqs, get, knock your DT and all that. One, tip I would say is make sure you really, you know, delve like throw yourself into the field of dentistry and learn as much as you can. That way, when it comes to your actual dental school process and, like choosing dental schools, I feel, it'll come as almost a second nature because you know exactly what you're looking for. Another tip would be more concerning exams would be if I could go back and tell, and which I tell all my students that are part of USNDA at Michigan is take your DAT that end of your sophomore year, or once you're done taking Orgo 2. So you knocked out your bios, your Gen Chem, your Orgo 2, Orgo 1 and 2. Take it then because the biochem and anatomy and physiology aspect of DAT is not that dense. It's not worth taking, full class on it. It's helpful, in reviewing, but when it comes to actually taking the test and reviewing, the DAT, any resource you use will prep you well enough for it. That way, not only does it, you do well your sophomore year, right? You go into your junior year, and now you can start working on that personal statement like we were talking about, like
Yep.
starting your letters of rec.
Yep.
And say it goes, a sour route, you have a full year to prep yourself again and still, apply, say, per se, if you want to apply straight out of undergrad, or, just say, it just alleviates a lot of, pressure on you.
Gotcha.
Mm.
So take the DAT after which class again?
Typically it's your sophomore year of undergrad, or take it after Orgo 2, after you've completed your organic chemistry, Gen Chem, and biology. When you complete those 3 series of classes, take the DAT because that's majority of the science section.
Gotcha. Gotcha. What about externships? Anything related to externships or shadowing that people should also strongly consider?
Yeah, going back to what I was saying about delving into dentistry, shadow as much as you can. Shoot, just keep shooting emails, go into offices. If your campus has a community clinic, volunteer there, or if your school has a dental school on campus, volunteer there. Dental students and faculty are more than willing to have you come in and show you how it's done and what their life is like. I would also say reach out to outreach teams for universities. I know UCSF has one. I know other schools across the nation have them as well. So that way you can talk to these outreach coordinators or outreach faculty and learn more about the school. And also it's kind of putting a face to application. That way they're like, oh, okay, we've seen this person before because he's been interested in our program. So it's not. I'm not saying it's gonna get you in dental school, but it is nice to see that you are committed to your school and that you really do want to be a part of that program.
Awesome. Some great tips. Hope you guys stayed all the way through to get these tips. Doc, what's the best way for people to contact you if they have questions or want to talk to you some more?
Yeah, so you can reach me via social media or email. So my email is Leopold LEOPOLD .Samba SAMBA @UCSF.edu, right there. And you can reach me at my Instagram at Leo Samba. And those are 2 perfect ways to reach out to me. And if you have any other questions regarding, pre-dentistry route or, application, let me know. I'll answer your questions.
Good. Hey, Doc, thank you so much for your time. Really excited for you. Welcome to the class of 2026. Get this thing done out on the West Coast. Definitely want to continue to follow your journey through this process these next 4 years. And again, just congratulations and thank you. The information that you shared is very helpful for a lot of people. Hopefully, guys, also check out these videos here, and hopefully they will be helpful for you as well. And that's our time. Love, peace, and smile. See you on the next video. Go to the next video right after this one. Go.